Hey headphone people, MrAyrit here. Got an interesting comparison for you today, something that I've been putting off for a little bit just because I really wanted to get my thoughts solidified on these two tube amplifiers. So I can't hold them, I'm not going to hold them up today because they're both a little hefty. So we've got the Bottlehead Crack with the Speedball upgrade over here, and then on this side we've got the Schiit Valhalla 2. So I just kind of lucked into both of these amps, honestly. The Valhalla 2, somebody offered me on a trade. I wasn't looking for it, didn't like, really had no interest in it, and got it and was like, whoa, I actually really enjoy the way this sounds. Bought several different pairs of tubes for it, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And then the Crack, I actually bought like not put together. So somebody had done the electronics, but they didn't actually like put the wood frame and stuff together. So I actually had to do that after I got it, which was cool because I kind of wanted to build it, but you know, I wanted the used price. So I kind of lucked out in that regard. Now, the one issue that I had with it was that it, if I can pull this up here, the one issue that I had is that the Speedball kit actually came unsoldered, one of the wires, when I got it. So I had to troubleshoot just a little bit, but that was okay. That was kind of fun in itself, right? So like, if you don't know anything about like Bottlehead, basically they send you these kits and you put them together yourself. And that's pretty neat because I don't know, it lets you kind of understand more about how tube amps work and things like that. I honestly, like, I wish and maybe I still will put one together from scratch one day, but again, I was looking for the used price, so I didn't actually put this one together. I just fixed one of the solder joints on it. But that's what it looks like, and you can see it doesn't, you know, it's not screwed down or anything. It just sits on top of the wood frame that you get here. So I chose to treat mine with teak oil and then just a little bit of wax on top of that, which gives it just kind of a nice golden kind of hue to it. And then, you know, the components just sit right in there, and like, you know, it's a snug fit, right? It's a snug fit. Okay, so anyway, so that's the Bottlehead. It's a little bit unique in that because of that, the way it sits on top like that, right? You've got power tube in the back here. I believe this is the stock tube that it comes with, and you can see it's an older kind of RCA tube. It looks to me like this is stock. I don't really know. Again, I didn't get this kit new. I also have another power tube for it that looks like this. I have a couple of different input tubes for it. The input tubes I have are I've got 12A U7s, and then I've got this other one, which is a 6S7N with a 12A U7 adapter. So there's tons. I'm not going to get too into like the tube rolling and things like that. I mean, I'll give you some brief impressions, but I mean, there's tons of information out on the web from people that are much more knowledgeable than me about this. So I just, you know, do your research. There's lots of good information out there that you can go get. What's interesting about the Crack here is that because it's a drop-in setup, like everything's on the top, right? So you've got here's your headphone out, just 1/4 inch volume pot, which feels pretty good. Regular kind of PC power cable back here, on off switch, and then just RCA in. So there's no preamp or anything like that. It's just strictly just a single-ended headphone amplifier. Now, the Valhalla 2 has a little more functionality, right? Because it's, you know, it's got RCA ins and it can be used as a preamp. So it's got RCA outs. It's got high-low gain. You can see the typical, you know, on-off switch on the back there. And then again, kind of a PC power cable. Now, you'll notice, though, that the Valhalla 2, it uses pairs of tubes I'll just link to Schiit's site and you can see all those. But 6922 tubes work in here, E88cc tubes. So again, I'll link to Schiit. You can read about that and do your own research. I had some Gold Lions, I had Electro Harmonics, and then I had the stock tubes, and then another set, and then I had some vintage RCAs as well with this one. And then the power tube, or the input tube here, I'm not even sure what these are, but again, it doesn't really say on there, but I'll just link to Schiit's site and you can go do your own research on that. When it comes down to it here, like you might be wondering even just like why tubes in the first place. It seems like kind of a hassle to deal with all this. Well, the tubes just bring kind of an interesting flavor to your headphones. And you know, I know it varies wildly, right? There's no one tube signature. There can be extremely clean and fast tube amps. There can be kind of darker, warmer tube amps and tubes, and all of it changes, you know, slightly with rolling, and some change more than others. And you can roll both tubes and that'll change a little bit. Again, there's a lot more information out there from people that are way more knowledgeable than me about it. I'm going to talk about kind of overall just impressions of both these amps. Just keep in mind that they can be tweaked to a certain extent with tube rolling, and maybe there's other combinations out here that would alter these characteristics wildly. I'm just talking about my experience with what I've got on hand, and I feel like both amps retained kind of their characters, even if they did change slightly as tubes were rolled. So in general, let me just get this out of the way. I prefer the Crack. I think the Crack is the superior amplifier. It just brings a life and an energy and a liveliness to every single like headphone that I put into it. Planar magnetics don't, in my experience, play very well with it. And that's mainly happens in like the lower frequencies. So like the bass frequencies get really sloppy on most of the planars that I tried on this, which is unfortunate because the mid-range and the highs sound really good, but then just the bass falls apart on it. But I would say that the Crack is like very well extended in the upper end and pretty well resolving, and does a great like air to it with you know, it's got a lot of detail, but it's so smooth though, and that kind of is like the same for the mids. They're rich and full. They're not super forward, and they're smooth but have a lot of detail and just a lot of life to them. So they have this, it toes the line with having like a lot of energy and life without ever being like forceful or, you know, overdoing it or over sharpening it or anything like that. The bass is probably the thing on the Crack that like, and again with the tubes that I have, I never got like a super clean bass, but the bass was still quite enjoyable. It was very full. I don't know that it extended super low, but that could just be the headphones that I've tried with it as well. So it was always enjoyable, but it wasn't ever like super clean and tight. It was a little bit looser, a little bit warmer, little bit sloppier, but still very enjoyable, right? Very enjoyable. But what I really love the Crack for is the mid-range and the upper frequencies and just the spatial presentation. Again, a very good resolution on it. I would say resolution on par with the Singzer SA1, honestly, which I have as well. The Valhalla 2, I just don't think has the same resolution capabilities as the Bottlehead Crack does. I always felt like it was a little more forward in its presentation. Its timbre wasn't as natural, and that was especially noticeable in like stringed instruments, I would say. And I didn't feel like the upper frequencies extended or resolved as well. It still has a rich mid-range to it, but it just didn't have the same feeling to it as the Crack does, of just everything. I just loved everything on the Crack that I threw at it. I didn't have that same experience with the Valhalla 2. Some things like it paired with really well, and some things, you know, were not as great. I do think that all in all, it had a little bit cleaner bass than the Crack, but again, I'm not sure that it was as enjoyable just as the Crack was as I was listening to it. I was able to change, with tube rolling. I noticed on the Valhalla 2, I had the Genelex Gold Lions. Those were a little more laid back, a little more subdued. I have the Electro Harmonics. They're still smoother, but they're a little more forward in their presentation than the stock tubes. I think were a little bit more in your face as far as that goes, and a little bit cleaner and less rich. I think my preference kind of settled on the Electro Harmonics tubes in the Valhalla 2 as just like a nice middle ground, but again, I never thought it got to the same enjoyment level and natural and open and resolving just experience as the Crack was. So, I just can't say enough good things about the Bottlehead Crack, and it really shocked me because it wasn't something that really appealed to me. But then I listened to Passion for Sound, did like a 4-part interview with one of the owners of Bottlehead, and after listening to that, I was just like, I really need to try some of their stuff, because I really liked a lot of what he was saying, and I would encourage you, I'll link that down below, I would encourage you to go check out that interview as well. But bottom line is that I just like the way it sounds. I like almost everything I put on it that's a dynamic driver. I just love things that I tried with both of these: Aeolus, Alex, Utopia, DT880 250 ohm, all the little COS headphones, all that stuff. Like, I just always just loved all of that on the Crack, and almost always preferred the Crack over the Valhalla 2. Not to say that the Valhalla 2 is bad, I prefer the Crack myself. Also, I think the Crack gets a win in that it's a little bit easier to tube roll, because you only, if you're only changing one of the tubes, you can buy several different iterations of tubes or different styles and things, and you only have to buy one, whereas on the Valhalla you have to buy 2, so it's like double the cost to roll, and rolling's like part of the fun with the tubes, right? So I'd say the Crack's a little bit easier to roll, and plus there's just so much information because people just love this amplifier. Now, one thing that was really interesting with the Bottlehead Crack is that it's supposed to be like Endgame 6XX amplifier, right? Well, I'm not a huge fan of the 6XX, and if you've seen my review on that, then you know that. But I did a review like a couple weeks ago of the Little Dot MK2, and I thought that, ironically, I thought that little cheap tube amp sounded better with the 6XX than the Crack does. So I don't know, 6XX is just weird to me. I just don't hear it the same way everyone else does. Odds are, if you have a 6XX, you're probably gonna love it with the Crack, and that's what most people say. It's like made for that headphone and all this stuff. But yeah, that wasn't what I found, but I'm just quirky in that way, I guess. So what it comes down to, I guess, is I love the Bottlehead Crack. I think it's an amazing amplifier. I think if you have an interest in doing, like a little bit of DIY and stuff, that it's totally worth a look to buy this kit and to do it. It seems like a lot, like $400 or whatever for a kit, an amplifier kit that you have to put together. But I think the end result, is I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of it. Plus, you get the enjoyment of like putting it together yourself and like kind of going through that process, which again, I didn't do the whole process with this amp, but I did a little bit of it, and just that in itself makes it like a little bit special. So Bottlehead Crack, totally recommend. If it were me and I'm choosing between the two, and I'm keeping the Crack. The Valhalla 2 I'm going to be selling, even though I've already invested in quite a bit of tubes. I prefer the Crack. And yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, right? Like, I feel like we get sometimes in the audiophile community, we get bogged down with technical details, and is it doing this right? Is it doing this right? Does it pair well with this? Does it do this? I'm getting to the point here where I'm just going solely off of like, do I get enjoyment out of it? When I put something into it, does it make me feel things that I enjoy? Does it make me kick back and listen to music? Does it make me listen to new music? Does it make me listen to my old library and go through it? And the Crack is making me do that. I want to try it with a bunch of different headphones. I want to try it with a bunch of different music. it's the type of equipment that I want. It's something that's bringing me a lot of joy, and I'm not over analyzing it. I'm just enjoying it. And if you can find a piece of gear that makes you do that, that's what we should all be striving for, isn't it? Isn't it? Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm going for anyway. So if you're into that, yeah, consider liking, subscribing. Well, what are your experiences with tube amplifiers? So, do you feel like they make a big difference? Have you found any great pairings that you want to share? What tubes should I try with the Crack? Let me know what's your favorite. Keep it on the reasonable side, right? I'm not going to spend $300 for a tube, but do you have any cheap budget like banger tubes that I should put in this thing? Let me know. But like I said, really enjoying the Crack, and I'll definitely, like, Bottlehead is a brand that I will consider should I ever feel the need to go up in amplifier quality. I might look at one of their upper end offerings. I think that would be kind of an interesting, cool experiment to try something like that. So yeah, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you being here as always. Stay tuned for more headphone content. There'll be more coming in the near future. Until then, I will see you next time.